Free speech or free will? Former CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, argued at the Oslo Freedom Forum for the latter in today's age of social media. And Elon Musk seems to agree. Let's hear what he had to say.
This is going to sound a little bit crazy, but I think the free speech debate is a complete distraction right now. I think the real debate should be about free will. And we feel it right now because we are being programmed. We're being programmed based on what we say we're interested in. And we are told through these discovery mechanisms what is interesting. And as we engage and interact with this content, the algorithm continues to build more and more of this bias. But the algorithm, even if it's open source, is effectively a black box. You cannot predict 100% of the time how it's going to work, what it's going to show you. And it can be moved and changed at any time. And because people become so dependent upon it, it's actually changing and impacting the agency we have, the free agency we have. And I think the only answer to this is not to work harder at open source in algorithms or making them more explainable about what they're doing and why they're doing it, but to give people choice. Give people choice of what algorithm they want to use from a party that they trust. Give people choice to build their own algorithm that they can plug in on top of these networks and see what they want, and they can shift them out as well. And give people choice to have really a marketplace around an algorithm that you can choose.
Niall, do you feel like you are being programmed and that your free will has declined in recent years?
I don't feel I'm being programmed. So I have a complicated response to this. I mean, I think that there are clearly dangers in the increasing prevalence of algorithms, and I do very much take the point that there can be a tendency to only then provide us with information akin to information that we've already sought out. Mm-hmm. And so a more open way of just sort of chancing upon information seems to get more and more narrow. I guess that my initial reaction to what Dorsey said there was the sense that it sort of seems to ignore that there is a not online life that we have as well, mm-hmm. that the mere fact that algorithms are so prevalent in technology doesn't mean that that's the entirety of our lives, and we are therefore being programmed because TikTok shows us things that's similar to what we've already looked at, you know?
Yeah, there's a big question here about what role algorithms are playing in that online life experience, because that is different than how we may interact with people on the streets and our families and our personal lives. When I think about the kind of experience I want to have on social media, there's a choice between the chronological feed and the algorithmic feed. Mm-hmm. Facebook started moving away from the chronological feed where you saw things in the order in which they were posted around 2007, and the experience changed dramatically. They started making guesses based on what I wanted to see. But here's the thing that people don't like to admit. They tend to be right. You do want to see people who agree with you. You do want, if you're me, to see that people on Twitter are talking about the new Acolyte Star Wars show. Sure. That's something that it knows that I want to see. But Dorsey's point is so important, which is how do you split apart the fact that it is getting you correct. Mm-hmm. The algorithm understands you, mm-hmm. but it is also guiding your decision making. Mm-hmm. Have you ever experienced somebody saying that they thought that their devices were listening to them because the ads are being served to them? I was just talking to my husband about that, and then I was served a push ad. Right there, like that's the kind of nudging and tweaking of what people feel as their free will sort of being messed with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When Dorsey said that thing about, people could build their own algorithm, I immediately thought about what you just suggested, which is, in a sense, we already create our own algorithm results because of what we do, right? That's the whole point, that the algorithm is often right. Yes, sometimes it'll get it wrong, but it'll present you with Star Wars material, it'll present me with live Bruce Springsteen performances, and those are pretty good guesses for both of us. And if they were reversed, they probably wouldn't be the same. But when it gets into, and I think your point about advertising raises this, when it gets into essentially selling people stuff, not only presenting them with content that they might find interesting or engaging, but utilizing that, as of course all people in the commercial side do, to sell you stuff, to push you toward purchasing things. I think that becomes more questionable, as does, of course, all the privacy concerns where how much do people know about us online? And of course, that's a massive issue.
Yeah, no, that is. And, the issue with, I'm being fed ads and I think that my phone is listening to me. The phone's not listening to you. It's looking at all of your metadata, your behaviors online, the things you're saying, the websites that you're visiting, and it is making recommendations of, I think you really do want to go to the Cayman Islands on a vacation or something like that. And you go, how did it know? It's because these things are incredibly smart. And it makes your online experience better. Algorithms in general make the experience better. And so your Facebooks of the world, Meta, I guess, they want to protect that user experience. They don't want to go to a system of anarchy where you're being bombarded by stuff that you don't want to see. But I love what Jack Dorsey's saying about open source algorithms and how you could have a future where you go onto Facebook, you go onto Twitter, and there are a bunch of different designers out there who have made algorithms, and maybe somebody designs an algorithm for your love of balanced discussion. And so the algorithm that you use and select for Twitter is pulling people from both sides and giving you sane discourse. That's possible if we actually develop those things.
Well, it's also possible if we want it, of course, which is a more complicated question, right? Do people actually want that, or do they want their beliefs reinforced? I also just want to, mention, in terms of the influence of algorithms, which I think we're in agreement on, I often think about how, as someone who, when I grew up in the pre-internet age, basically, I remember the internet being a new thing, and it always strikes me, I haven't frankly bought a print newspaper for a very, very long time, and I try not to be, a Luddite about things and try to keep somewhat on pace. One of the few experiences of a print newspaper that I miss is you open it up, you read the story that you're interested in, and maybe down on this corner, there's something that you would never have searched for that you find really interesting because it's right there. And it seems to me that in social media and digital media generally, the random thing that you didn't know you might be interested in is never there. It is just a replication of all the things that you were already interested in.
Yeah, and I think what you're describing there is still a limited menu of options. And even when you have that physical newspaper, you are still drawing from options in that newspaper curated by an editorial team.
For sure.
And the editorial team is the original stand-in for the algorithm. And so the transparency factor is key. People want to understand what is this algorithm's design? What is it doing? And people in Congress particularly want to know when it comes to censorship, because social media companies will often deflect blame to the algorithm censored your content. The algorithm or a coder, they censored your content. But we need to be able to know, actually, how these things are designed. And I think over time, consumers will be able to have more choices for how their social media experience looks. But I actually think that Dorsey nails this. There's not a free speech problem. There's so much speech. There is so many viewpoints that you can get on a number of different platforms. Does Twitter or Facebook sometimes crack down on certain views? Yes, but then you can go find those views anywhere else on another website.
Yeah, and I do think that's one of the real advantages of the current age. Yes, you could have the whole other conversation about disinformation, misinformation, all of that, but the diversity of viewpoints that is out there, if you wish to look for them, is massive. And so you can get into all of that if you have the time and inclination and are not frustrated by the algorithm or by tech companies.
I guess the big wrinkle, though, is when we're talking about minors, we're talking about kids.
Right,
New York just passed landmark legislation, like first in the country, a bill which would restrict social media for children. And it would very specifically limit addictive feeds or algorithmic experiences for minors in the state of New York. You're seeing these kind of laws pop up all around the country, social media regulation. And my big question for that is, like, are kids on social media better off with an algorithmic experience or not? And I tend to think that they probably would be, because algorithms, they are also what clean up hate speech. Algorithms are what clean up pornography, unless you're Twitter. Like, algorithms curate the experience, and there is a way in which, if you don't have that, you're going to have a more chaotic social media experience, and I'm not sure that protects kids.
On this topic of the upside of algorithms, we'll leave it there. Stephen, great to see you. Great to have you with us. That is all we have on Rising for today. Our regular Friday hosts, Amber and Jess, will be here tomorrow. Now, do be sure to like, share and subscribe so you can never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.